As we're in the midwinter, I love the idea of sharing stories. So I'm going to tell you a story, a very old story. In fact, I learned it as a child from this book. But it's about Yggdrasil and why we celebrate her and why she's important. And I think Yggdrasil is a female. Yggdrasil is named after the translation is Odin's horse. And in my Hangman video, I talk a bit about how Yggdrasil, Odin's horse, the tree of life, is what Odin hangs himself on he sacrifices himself to himself that he may have knowledge. And the end of times are always prophesized. And after Balder was the most beloved of the gods. He was very gentle, very beautiful. And after he dies, all the gods and all the creatures of the world unite to try and resurrect Balder, but Loki tricks them in the end. And Balder cannot be resurrected. But with the death of beauty comes the death of kindness. And the world begins to change. And Yggdrasil begins to tremble and begins to wilt. So Odin goes to a seer and is promised destruction. And he knows the time is coming. Because the honor of which the world has been built is failing. There is no mercy in the hearts of men or gods. The goodness is emptying out of the world. And while the gods fight for power, men fight for gold. And the world, the great evils in the world become unbound and left to run amok. And there is no honor in men. Brother can no longer trust brother, sister can no longer trust sister, as they fight for the shallow symbols of the material world. And Odin flies across the sky with the Valkyries, across all the battlefields, trying to collect the best warriors, the most honorable, most fearless, that they might come together again in the last battle to try to save the world. And regular people are also impacted. The farmers, the merchants, but they're all entangled in this evil with no conception of what is good and what is right. And the world gets plunged into winter. And no sun comes, no summer comes after 1 year. No summer comes after 2 years. And in the 3rd year of winter, while man has fought for gold, realizes there is no fuel. to be bought. There is no food to be bought. And a great cold sweeps the world, and the battle begins. And many things happen in this battle. There is flame, and there is ice, and many things in between. But Yggdrasil, in her wisdom, sees a little boy and a little girl, and opens her bark and surrounds them and brings them into the trunk of her. Because the evergreen can withstand great heat, she can withstand great cold, and she will live. So as the gods and the frost giants fight fire and ice, and the world is descended into darkness, the stars are ripped from the skies, the earth is plunged into the sea, and the sun sets for seemingly ever. The few gods that remain play chess in the ruins of the world that was. And then one day, the water begins to sink, begins to lower, and the earth begins to rise. The sun begins to move back into the sky. The stars climb into the skies. And with her last breath, her last act of courage, Yggdrasil opens up her bark, and the only two humans that exist are a little boy, Leaf, which stands for life, and I'm so going to butcher this name, Leifheimern, which means the will to live, come forth. And together they begin the cycle again. So as you enjoy your beverage tonight and looking at your Christmas tree, marvel at the wonder of this world. Marvel at the wisdom that brought us to this moment together. Because it's amazing. Think of the thousands, millions of people that came before you and created you. Look at the evergreen and her wisdom and her resiliency to live through anything and do an act of courage with her last breath. And don't be fooled by the ornaments on the tree, for they're just decorations. It is the courage and conviction, the honor and duty and beauty and compassion and mercy that are at the core of the Christmas tree. I'm going to add a small twist that you don't see coming. But it was the protection of the evergreen that allowed the little boy and the little girl to travel forward and recreate humanity. And that, my friend, is why people are buried in pine boxes. It is the protection and the promise of the evergreen. I hope you liked this story. Sending you lots of love, and have a good night.